This is From Justin Defresne, a podcast where Mike Robertson and Bob LaRue watch one critically acclaimed film and one terrible film and talk about how they are the same. Welcome, everybody, to From Justin Defresne. I'm Bob.
I'm Mike.
We just spent an hour before we hit record talking about N64 games, and frankly, we should have recorded it, but we didn't. And now we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about movies, right, Mike?
Well, we need to do an N64 corner one day.
Yeah, the 64th corner.
Yes.
Yeah. How many corners have we done? 63.
Probably, at this point, yes.
Why was it called the N64?
64-bit.
64-bit. Wow. Not because it was released in 1964.
No. It was originally actually called the Ultra 64.
Really?
Because Ultra was like a cool sounding word back then.
Mm-hmm.
In the 90s, people would say tubular and radical and ultra.
They'd also say surf the web.
Yeah, they say surf the web. Everything was E, E, cash, E, mail. Those are the only ones I can come up with.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm shocked that pop quiz went so well and you actually had an answer for me.
Oh, well, I mean, I was alive during that time. I was reading magazines.
You weren't Googling stuff. You were reading magazines.
That was the only way to find out information. You'd have to go to the store, spend $6 on a magazine. And I sound old just talking about that was the only way to do things back in those days. But it's true. That's how you found out about video game stuff, just magazines.
I love it. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
64-bit. I didn't even know that. That's good to know.
That's not a whole lot of bits.
No, it really isn't. It's less than 100 bits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's wild how
but
fast
I will
things
say,
move.
of those bits, they're great bits.
Oh.
Great bits on the N64.
This is also a great bit.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Should we describe the two movies we're going to talk about?
Well, yeah, we should just get into what we're talking about, actually. Although, a little bit of a cold open banter, that's fine, too.
Yeah, well, it is winter, so you got to keep it frigid right out of the gate. It's a real cold, crisp opener for all of you listeners.
It's like in the Mark Maron podcast where you spend half an hour of Mark just talking about whatever the heck he wants to for the first half hour.
You know what I love? The sort of like super subtle fuck you of all the podcasters who do that. When it's posted to YouTube, the top comment is just the time in which the open is done.
Yeah.
And the podcast actually starts, and it'll just say like 19:34, and you click on it and it just skips all the shitty stuff.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's always an unsung hero who scrubs, finds the point, and then posts it in the comments for the people.
The people.
Yeah. I wonder if people do that to us.
No. Definitely not.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had a single comment on any of our YouTube when we put the podcast on YouTube. We've had
nobody uses YouTube for podcasts.
Surprisingly, amount of people do.
Yeah, but if you look at the stats, not to just keep bringing them up, but Armchair Expert, it'll be 30,000 on the YouTube video, but they're getting millions.
Yeah.
Per episode, and it's obviously it's mostly on Spotify.
Right.
So, yeah, I think YouTube is just not as popular a medium.
Oh, of course not.
Or a delivery service.
No, of course not. Especially if you don't have the YouTube Premium or whatever. So who would watch a YouTube video of a podcast and listen to ads? Of
a thumbnail.
Yeah.
YouTube video of a thumbnail of the logo of the podcast.
I know. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's a waste. Now, how is that for a cold open?
Good.
Damn, It's just getting colder and colder. Ooh, I got to put on my winter parka for this episode, I think, because it's going to be just cold opens one after another.
So cold that there's freezing rain outside.
That's right. The roads are frozen. I'm getting my winter tires put on tomorrow.
Nice.
The mechanic said, and I quote, "Yeah, let's get those boots on you. You'll need them."
Yeah.
That's what he meant. The boots are winter tires. That's some mechanic jargon for all of you people.
Oh, a little FYI.
So I'm just going to say, Mike, the one movie that you made me watch was fun, but it also felt like punishment.
Okay.
I'm talking about Tammy and the T-Rex, a.k.a. Tammy and the Teenage T-Rex, a.k.a. Tanny and the T-Rex, a.k.a. Tanny and the Teenage T-Rex.
Jesus.
Yeah. It was good, but it was tough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was our bad film.
Yeah.
Our good film is IMDb's favorite movie.
The Shawshank Redemption.
That's right.
Yeah, we were talking a week or two ago about why is that movie the best movie ever made, according to IMDb and or Barstool Sports. And
because is it the best movie?
Well, I saw it on a list, like a list someone was sharing around on Twitter, and it was like the top 100 movies, and they were all like bro-centric movies, you know, or like dude movies.
Just a couple of guys doing their thing.
And the Shawshank Redemption is always on there, and I always find it fascinating. Why?
I think what's interesting about the Shawshank Redemption, similar to like The Thing, is they're sort of films with exclusively male characters.
Mm-hmm.
And no one ever like brings that up when they talk about the films, but it's sort of an interesting layer, you know?
Right.
Just a bunch of guys being guys, either fighting aliens or trying to break out of jail.
Also, the character of Andy in Shawshank Redemption is a bit of a wiener.
Yes.
In that he's a banker.
Yeah.
So, attention to all bankers listening. You're friggin' wieners. Yeah.
Wieners. Bunch of dang wieners.
But he's like a bit of a wiener, but he's also kind of like a flawless character.
Yes.
Where nothing bad happens to him aside, I mean, from being in prison, obviously. And
well, a bunch of bad stuff happens to him.
I mean,
he's repeatedly...
I just mean that he doesn't do anything wrong.
No. Well, you know what? I was reading a review, actually, and a lot of people sort of interpret him as like this Christ-like metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's basically just Jesus Christ, because he's constantly tortured, but he never does evil.
No.
And even when he like does payback at the end of the movie, it's like done in a very wholesome, altruistic way.
So is that why the movie is so well respected? Because it's deep? Because there's a Jesus metaphor at the center of it?
Yeah, well, according to Frank Darabont, he's like, that didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
I had no idea. He's like, you can think whatever you want, but that is not my intention. But if that's how you look at it, awesome. He was very like ambivalent and ambiguous about the sort of Christ metaphor.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, Jesus is the original, character who doesn't do anything wrong, but gets stuff done to him.
Well, here's a question.
He's like the Superman character, the original one. Not unlike Neo from The Matrix also.
That's right. Or the T-Rex from Tammy and the T-Rex. Very Christ-like.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
just very similar.
Except the cross for the T-Rex has very short, like little, the T part at the top.
Except the movie has some scale issues every once in a while with the arms specifically.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
The Tammy and the T-Rex, the T stands for the one true cross.
Similar to like the poster for There Will Be Blood, and it's like a cross instead of the oil derrick jack thing.
Yeah.
It's like that, but it's a T-Rex on the cross.
Yes.
And T-Rex. The word T-Rex.
Yes.
Did I articulate that well?
I think so.
I don't know. Jesus Christ.
Praise be to him.
Praise be the T-Rex. Yeah. Had you seen Tammy and the T-Rex before?
No, I just kind of had heard about it. I had a Shudder subscription, which is how I watched it. And
Same.
I had 3 days left on it before it expired, and so I was like, I gotta watch one more movie. And that was just the one I found. So I just picked it randomly, having heard nothing really about it except that it was kind of like a cult movie now.
Yeah.
And then it also in the description said that the version they were showing was the previously unavailable Gore Cut.
It was gory, cartoonishly gory, like that guy who's flat and they just roll him up, stuff like that. Ugh, it's definitely part of the slime genre.
Yeah, exactly. There's some good slime
and it's
stuff.
Also our deeply, loved dinosploitation subgenre. And boy, is this dinosploitation kind of to the nth degree.
Right. There's a similarity right there between
Oh,
the two movies in that both exploitations, I guess.
go on.
Shawshank Redemption is like prison break exploitation.
That's true.
The Great Escape. The show Prison Break.
That's right. Shout out to Prison Break. Great show. I've never
shout out
seen
to
it,
the Great Escape episode we've done before.
Yeah, well, I love The Great Escape. Big fan.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's also, it's a Stephen King adaptation. One of the handful non-spooky adaptations.
Yeah, how many did he do?
I think 3. You got Stand By Me, this movie, another Prison Break exploitation, The Green Mile, same director, Frank Darabont, and that might be it.
Okay.
Can you think of any?
I'm trying to, but I can't think of any. And I would even say Stand By Me has a dead body in it, so it's vaguely...
That's true, but it's a coming-of-age story.
Yeah.
And the original story is way scarier. Rob Reiner changed it very much.
Did Stephen King like this movie? He doesn't like The Shining, famously, right?
He loved this movie, and so it's funny. I guess I'll just get into it a little bit.
Okay,
a little background on the Shawshank Redemption.
Get into it, yeah.
But here's a fun little story. So Frank Darabont, the director and screenwriter of Shawshank Redemption, is good friends with Stephen King. He bought a short story from Stephen King for $1 and wrote a short film about it. And that was like his first professional gig. Because Stephen King does this thing where you can buy his short stories for $1, the rights to them, and then write your own screenplay adaptation. And then afterwards, Frank Darabont wrote Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. And that was his first union screenwriting gig.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, he went to Stephen King in 1987, and he wrote him a check for $5,000 for the rights to Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, which is the name of the, it's like a 98-page novella that Stephen King wrote. He wrote a series of novellas basically exploring other genres, and this was one of them. And he's like, sure, I'll sell you the rights to this book. He's like, I don't think it's very interesting or very good. And Frank Darabont was like, oh, you just wait and see.
You just wait and see what IMDb thinks about this.
Well, it's crazy because when it came out, it didn't make a lot of money initially, but upon its rental heyday, 325,000 VHSs were made of the film in 1995, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And it made a shitload in rentals. And that's where it was sort of cemented. And then it was sold to Time Warner, to a TV network, and then it played on TV. It's I feel like Forrest Gump and Shawshank Redemption are just movies. If you just turn on a TV, there's a movie playing. This is one of them.
Yeah.
So that helped with its popularity, and then it sort of cemented itself in the zeitgeist over the next 10 years just because of cable and VHS rentals.
It's also a safe, good movie, Oscar kind of movie.
Yeah.
For the family in a way. There's cursing and whatnot, but I just mean, it's like an Oscar movie for dads.
It really is. And it's not too heavy, even though it is a heavy movie. Andy Dufresne raped multiple times. For some reason, the film is just not dark when it kind of handles all of that subject matter.
Right.
There's Frank Darabont's sort of large inspiration were a lot of movies from the 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm. Well, he even has a name. He even has a 40s and 50s kind of name.
Yeah, he does. He kind of talks like he's from the 50s, actually. So Stephen King, so he sells him the rights for $5,000 in 1987, and then Frank Darabont wrote the screenplay in 1993 in, get this, 8 weeks.
Right.
Took it to Newcastle. It got picked up and funded, $25 million budget. Made, blah, blah, blah. History happens. It's, it is what it is. And then Stephen King never cashed the check for $5,000. And then years later, he framed it with a note and gave it back to Frank Darabont. And it read, and I quote, "In case you ever need bail money, love, Steve."
Interesting.
Isn't that funny? Because of Prison Movie. You get it?
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
Yeah.
But also the check's useless because
it's outdated.
He can't deposit it because it doesn't have his name on it. And then
That's
also...
true.
Stephen King, you're
one
dumb,
thing to say
you're
to
dumb
you.
for doing this.
You're no fun.
Yeah.
You're just no fun.
Stephen King, what the heck do you think you're doing?
Steve King, you dumbass.
King?
I call him Steve because we're friends.
Yeah.
He says love Steve to me all the time.
Yeah. This book was written by Steve King. Awesome.
I guess also Dark Tower's not that spooky. The movie with McConaughey and Idris Elba. It's more fantasy.
Never seen it.
I saw half of it because it was on Netflix, and I was like, this is unwatchable.
Hmm.
It's just like post-Interstellar, so it's like super skinny but hunky McConaughey. You know what I mean? But his hair is getting longer. Like this is like the Mud era. Starting to look like the guy from Mud. Anywho, so yeah, they were like good friends, and then Frank Darabont adapted The Green Mile, which came out in 1999. Those were his first two movies as a director, which is kind of crazy because they're both prison movies, and they're both based off of Stephen King stories, and they're also his two most successful movies.
Right.
He kind of went into the shitter after that. But then he adapted another Stephen King story, The Mist.
Right.
Which he made in 2007.
I'm just looking up other non-scary Stephen Kings. The Running Man.
Oh, yeah, with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Great movie.
So there was some other non-scary Stephen King movies. The Dead Zone, kind of scary.
I don't agree with that. With Christopher Walken.
I'm just looking at a list online. The Running Man, definitely not scary.
No.
Stand By Me, Shawshank Redemption, Dolores Claiborne.
Never heard of it.
Kind of a psychological thriller, I'd say.
Mm.
Thinner, I'd say that's a horror movie. Apt Pupil, Ian McKellen plays Nazi. Green Mile, Hearts in Atlantis came out on my birthday.
Oh, yeah, you love bringing that up.
And 20 years ago. Yeah, Secret Window, The Mist, as you said, Dark Tower. Anyway, fascinating stuff. That seems to be it. But Hearts in Atlantis is another good kind of Shawshank adjacent.
I haven't seen it.
Neither have I, but it's just a not scary one is what I mean. Kind of like Oscar Beatty, kind of non-scary Stephen King or Steve King movie.
Is it popular? Did it do well?
I can't remember. I don't think so.
Okay.
I just remember it being at the video store.
You seem really close to this movie because it came out on your birthday 20 years ago.
Hearts in Atlantis?
Yeah, and you haven't seen it, but you talk about it all the time.
I mean,
I've never hung out with you where you haven't brought up that it was released on your birthday.
Yeah.
Literally.
Well,
and I think we've hung out like 500 times.
I mean, I've seen it in that I've seen the video box. I've seen a cassette of the film.
And you've read the back
DVD,
of the cassette.
And I've read
it's called a sleeve.
It's called
a sleeve.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like you should watch it.
Maybe I will.
I feel like you're obligated.
I kind of am, yeah. It's kind of
spiritually.
Like, yeah.
You know?
I kind of am.
Yeah. You owe it to Steve.
I know. Steve King's always calling me up, being like, "Hey, have you seen Hearts in Atlantis yet?" And I say, "No." He's like, "It came out on your birthday." And I'm like, "Steve, you don't got to tell me that." He's King.
Just like, you're always like, "No, I haven't seen it." And he's just like, "God, you're one cold-hearted son of a bitch." And then he hangs up. Every day. We have that interaction with Steve King.
Freaking Steve King.
Shawshank Redemption, based off of a Steve King novella, I guess, 98 pages. Nominated for 7 Oscars, didn't win any. Nominated for 2 Golden Globes, didn't win any. So it was very Oscar baity, but it really fell short at the finish line. You know what I mean?
Well, it also was going up against what movies?
Forrest Gump.
And?
94 was a big year. I don't know. What was the other movie? Oh, yes. That's right. And because it did poorly at the box office, they blame those 2 movies specifically for fucking it over, which I think is hilarious.
I mean, yeah, is it another movie to blame for your movie not doing well? In a way, kind of, I guess, if a movie is so huge. Like if I put out a movie at the same time as whatever the Marvel flavor of the day is, and that movie just takes up 20 theaters in the multiplex, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I put out my indie drama.
But I think it's like the box office would be comparable with or without those other films being there, because it's like a film is made for an audience and only has a certain amount of reach.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, this prison drama that's a Stephen King story, but it's not scary. I think you've already alienated a huge part of the population.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just about dudes in prison.
Yeah, just a bunch of guys just doing guy stuff.
Yeah, these guys are in prison, and guess what? They're the good guys. The prisoners are the good guys. The criminals, the scum of society, they're the good guys.
Or as Andy Dufresne says, he had to wait till he was on the inside to become a criminal.
Exactly.
Because he does tax evasion. Clever guy, that Andy Dufresne. So you want to know something fun? So Rob Reiner, who co-founded Castle Rock, which is the company that made this movie, he offered Frank Darabont $2.5 to $3 million to direct the film and for the rights to the screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Darabont said, "Hell no. I'm making this movie, but Rob Reiner was going to make it with Harrison Ford and Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise as Andy, Harrison Ford as Red. Imagine that movie.
I can imagine it.
It wouldn't be the same.
No, it wouldn't be.
And I think Rob Reiner could have made a good movie, but that casting seems a bit weird.
This is also, I mean, Shawshank Redemption is is the central film, probably, like the main film that people think of when it comes to narration exploitation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because the joke of Morgan Freeman narrating movies as just a bit that people like talk about.
Started with
this movie, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and this was a big movie for Morgan Freeman.
Oh, yeah.
I think. This was sort of early in his sort of like, oh, this guy can be a lead. Because his career started pretty late.
He's always teamed up with a handsome white guy a lot of the time.
That's true. Yeah.
Because Seven is also a huge movie for him. It's like, can't Morgan carry a movie by himself? I think so.
Oh, definitely. He's always in two-handers.
He kind of always is, yeah. Like
is he alone in a movie?
Along Came a Spider also.
But that's a two-hander.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. And lest we forget Bucket List with Jack Nicholson.
Mm-hmm.
Two-hander.
That's another two-hander, yeah.
Yeah, damn.
I mean, has there been a movie where it's like, yo, this is Morgan Freeman. He is going to rock your socks off just by himself?
No, I don't think it's happened.
Yeah, it probably means he's a good actor because
Crazy Driving Miss Daisy.
He's good to bounce off of.
Two-hander. Yeah, yeah. Well, he's a great scene partner. He's really good to play with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really good at playing. boy, does he love to play.
Oh yeah, we love to play with Morgan. Oh, I was gonna say Invictus is probably the one movie where Morgan Freeman theoretically kind of stars in it, but he plays opposite Matt Damon.
Oh,
it's the Clint Eastwood movie about the soccer player,
right?
The rugby player,
right.
And Morgan Freeman plays Nelson Mandela.
That's right. I've never seen it.
I can't. Bruce Almighty. He plays opposite Jim Carrey.
Yeah, well, he's either it's a two-hander or he's supporting.
Nurse Betty.
Like Oblivion, he's a supporting character in Oblivion.
Unforgiven.
Fascinating.
He's in Unforgiven.
That's right.
And he is a
supporting character.
Wow. Morgan, we need you to just be you.
He should be Batman.
Has he won an Oscar ever? He did win for Driving Miss Daisy.
Right.
No, wait.
Right.
But for $1 Million Baby, he won Best Supporting Actor. That's what it was.
Yes. Right.
So, anyway.
He plays, yeah. That's right. Fascinating. Truly fascinating. His career. Wow. He's very good in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if he's like bummed out that he can't be a star. Even though he is one of our most acclaimed actors.
He's literally a millionaire and a celebrity. I bet you he gives zero shits.
Yeah, he seems also like he's a pretty funny, chill dude.
I think he's kind of like how De Niro's been making some really dicey acting decisions in the past 10 years, just like making insane movies that are not very good. Because I think he just doesn't give a shit. I feel like Morgan Freeman's in the same category. He's just like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know anybody anything.
Yeah.
You know? And they both have their own Taxi Driver. Ironically, or not coincidentally, both involving cars. Robert De Niro, Taxi Driver. Morgan Freeman, Driving Miss Daisy. Both drivers.
Yeah.
Both transportation exploitation films.
And there's a scene in both of those movies, Driving Miss Daisy and Taxi Driver, where the male lead takes her to a porn theater and is like, why
on a first date.
Yeah, on a first date, and is like, why does she not like this?
Yeah, that's right. And then there's the scene where they both strap themselves full of firearms and then just start shooting a bunch of people in a small Brooklyn apartment complex.
But then they're a hero.
They are, yeah. Cinema, hey? Transportation exploitation. What are you going to do? Not a lot of transportation in Shawshank, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, the only transportation really is getting on a bus, climbing through a pipe.
Yeah, one might say the opposite of laying pipe. Climbing through a pipe.
All night long.
Not a lot of pipe was laid in this movie. Anyways, so starring Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman, shot by Roger Deakins.
Classic.
This is one of his earlier films in the US of A. Made for $25 million. I guess, it was filmed in Ohio. The prison was Ohio State Reformatory. The facility was shut down 3 years prior because of inhumane living conditions.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the neighboring town, they shot a bunch of other stuff. So they shot, they built in this old electricity complex factory that was, dilapidated. They built studios for, the cell blocks and stuff because he wanted them to face each other. And then they shot in the neighboring town. And that tree where the thing is buried with, the map or whatever.
Yes.
That tree was struck by lightning in 2011 and is split down the middle. Isn't that interesting?
That is pretty wild.
But it's still standing. So you know the scene where Tim Robbins is asking for the rock hammer and Morgan Freeman's chucking the ball back and forth?
Do I?
They shot that scene for 9 hours because Frank Darabont, similar to David Fincher, he just wanted a million takes of everything, and he was driving everybody crazy. The crew, the cast, Deakins, he was butting heads with everybody. But apparently the next day, Morgan Freeman showed up in a sling because his arm was so fucked from throwing a ball for 9 hours straight. And there are several instances of that where he would just sort of milk a scene to a ridiculous point and just make the actors constantly sort of do stuff. And he wouldn't give notes, and the takes would just be identical, and the actors would just be like, why are we doing this again? This doesn't make any sense. You're not even directing us.
Yeah.
So apparently he had a very tumultuous relationship with almost everyone involved in the film.
Well, there's a similarity right there.
Ooh.
Because in Tammy and the T-Rex, a.k.a. Tammy and the Teenage T-Rex, a.k.a. Tanny and the T-Rex, a.k.a. Tanny and the Teenage T-Rex.
That's right.
One of the actors, one of the people who played the bumbling cop, had a heart attack on set.
Oh, wow.
And needed medical attention, so there you go. On both films, medical attention was needed for a actor.
Wow. How was the relationship with the director and the actors?
I think fine.
Really?
I do know that Denise Richards didn't want to do the striptease scene at the end.
I wonder why.
Because it's dumb and probably
it kind of ruined the film.
Yeah, it's a very degrading and out of the blue.
Yeah, it was so bad. And then the robot teenager comes basically. Ugh, so stupid.
Anyway, we got to give. So are you done with that movie?
Yeah, I'm done. Let's talk about the more interesting movie.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll give some context about Tammy and the T-Rex because not everybody knows what this movie is. So but
they should.
Yes, they should.
This is the pinnacle of dinosploitation. I think
it kind
this
of
is sort of the apex of Hollywood money and creativity and Jurassic.
Yes.
Filmmaking.
Yes, I agree. Tammy and the T-Rex is a movie about a teen who's kind of a badass.
A lower income, kind of down on his luck, but heart of gold teenager.
Yeah, he's played by Paul Walker. His girlfriend is the titular Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Tanny.
And then, so he gets killed by
a lion.
A lion. Because some bullies let him loose in a zoo, which has a lion in it. And then
which is only held by a chain link fence and a tiny padlock.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So he gets killed by a lion, and then a mad scientist takes the body, takes his brain out, and puts it into an animatronic T-Rex. And this is something that's very, very important to this mad scientist, is that this T-Rex is he basically makes a Frankenstein T-Rex.
Yeah. I guess just to be clear, the lion doesn't kill Paul Walker. It injures him fatally, and then they the evil scientist abducts him from the hospital and then proceeds to punch him in the face every time he wakes up while he's in the middle of surgery, in which they use a jigsaw to cut off the top half of his cranium.
Yeah.
That scene was very unpleasant.
Yes.
And it didn't look realistic at all, but I was still just grossed out.
Yeah, it's fun.
Mostly for Paul Walker. I was like, oh, they had to make a mold of his head, and he had to watch this be done. And
there was a dummy
very
too.
traumatic.
So basically, Paul Walker his brain is in a T-Rex, an animatronic one. Like in the movie, it's an animatronic T-Rex.
Yeah.
And then Denise Richards' character, the titular Tammy, finds out about this, and they still are in a relationship together and are in love.
Yeah.
Even though he's a T-Rex, and so it's just them going on an adventure to get his body back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all it is. It was directed by Stuart Raffel, who is known for directing Mannequin 2, On the Move, a famous B-movie classic, and a movie we've covered on this podcast, Mac and Me.
Yes. How does he keep getting money to make these films?
Interesting story about this specific movie. Apparently, a guy who had $1 million and an animatronic T-Rex, he was like a German film producer from South America, somehow tracked down Stuart Raffel, of all people, and said, hey, I have this animatronic T-Rex. It is going to go to a theme park in Texas, but I have it for a couple of weeks. Can we make a movie out of it? So this guy just gave him money and a T-Rex and was like, just make a movie out of it. So Stuart Raffel spent a week writing a script, and then a month later, they started filming it.
I guess the similarity in terms of production is a really short writing period and then almost immediately starting production. Both films kind of fall under that workflow, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they filmed a R-rated version of it with a lot of gory scenes, but then when they released it on home video, they cut out a lot of the gore scenes and made it PG-13, but they kept a lot of the sexy stuff. So
usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, I know.
They keep the violence. Like American film is famous for like sexy stuff is taking it too far, but violence is fine.
Yeah, for whatever reason, that's how it ended up. So
it's extra dicey because the characters are minors.
Yes, of course.
So very, very, very dicey.
Very dicey.
It's like Euphoria before Euphoria was a thing.
Right.
Or like Big Mouth, where it's like, let's just talk about the sexual exploits of minors.
Yeah, it is always weird that teen movies where characters have sex are such a thing. Even like comedies like American Pie or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, these characters are in high school. They're technically underage. And we're watching them get naked.
It's an odd situation all the way around.
Anyway, so the Gore Cut though was circulated on VHS throughout like since the 90s. Even though you could like rent the PG-13 version, there was like kind of like a urban legend about the Gore Cut, and there was like VHS tapes of it that were spread around. So Vinegar Syndrome, which is a like I guess distribution company where they restore and like re-release cult films. One of the people who worked there, a guy named Joe Rubin, had always known about this Gore Cut, and so he used his clout with the company, I guess, to try and track down the original Gore Cut of it. So they did release this version on Shudder and on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K DVD.
Wow!
2 years ago.
All those Ks.
I know.
For that kind of movie, I guess you can really, really pick out the detail in the gore.
Yeah,
and
pristine.
In the animatronic T-Rex.
It also kind of became like a monthly cult movie event at Alamo Drafthouse. And similar to The Room, you know? It just kind of has had a bit of a history in the last couple decades.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. And it also, you know, we've talked about this in the past, just the cult movie kind of excitement of so bad it's good that kind of happened in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
With Miami Connection in The Room and this one. Yeah, and Neil Breen movies.
Yeah, all of them, basically.
All of his movies. Yeah, he wouldn't be famous if it wasn't for that kind of cult.
Same with Andy Sedaris films.
Yeah, Andy Sedaris movies, yeah.
Yeah, and Ed Wood, the OG, you know?
Yeah, so the director, Stuart Raffel, said that all of the locations were within half an hour of his house. That was kind of like maybe
I was in his rider. He's like, I'll only make the movie if my commute is extremely manageable.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. It sounded like this was kind of like someone gave him an improv prompt and then he was like, all right, I'm going to see what I can come up with this.
Yeah.
But
it's fun to work in those limitations. Like, you can only film on this one street, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
There has to be a T-Rex. You get this one street, $1 million, and we have to be wrapped by the end of this month. And it's like, okay.
Also, another fun fact, this is taken from Wikipedia. He says there was a fire which was happening during the shoot. And so you can see some smoke in the background of some scenes because there's a big fire happening.
Like a forest fire neighborhood. Or what?
No, I think it was like a neighborhood fire.
Oh, interesting.
And this movie supposedly, Stuart Raffel wanted to make a wacky movie, which it probably is just him like trying to justify how stupid this movie is, like after the fact. But because Mac and Me seemed like a bit of a cynical retread of E.T.
Yes.
So
yeah, definitely.
So I don't know. A part of me thinks he's just trying to justify it after the fact. But anyway, he thinks because of how dumb the concept is, that it's like a self-aware movie, I guess. It knows it's basically cult movie fodder kind of thing. And he says, I was just trying to do a film for people who like wacky movies. In other words, you laugh at the experience that I was facing, which is, what the hell are you meant to do with this material? I was sticking all this shit in just to make it work. Of course, when you only have a week to work on a script, it's a bit thin.
I mean, I guess he's like self-aware. He doesn't think he's like a maverick filmmaker.
No, I doubt. No.
Like, he's not delusional, which is kind of refreshing.
And he has made 3 like iconic, so bad they're good movies. Like Mannequin 2.
Which is not nothing.
Mac and Me and this.
I think we should do Mannequin 2 for the pod.
I agree.
This
Complete the
podcast
trilogy.
is just turning into an ode to him.
I know, in a way it is, yeah. Anyway, that's all I have about this movie.
Yeah, what a fucked up movie. It's insanity. It's nice to know that information because it makes my viewing experience in retrospect better.
Yes.
Because like there is so much of it that makes no sense. And it's like they cranked it out in a month or whatever that it checks out. It checks out.
Yeah, and it like works. Yeah. It's not like
it's not the worst movie I've ever seen.
No, and it is fun.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, a part of me kind of is like loves this movie a lot.
Part of you is like, why didn't I make this
Another
movie?
part of me was
right,
that
Mike?
as well. Yeah, I was thinking that also. I was like, oh,
we're
this
huge
would be fun.
Yeah, and we're huge proponents of dinosploitation.
Of course, we love it. It's our favorite exploitation.
Well, let's get into some similarities.
Some samesies.
Some samesies. Yes. That's right. I'll start. Both movies feature a character who is trapped.
Of course.
And
a prison.
Imprisoned, yes. One is in a robotic T-Rex.
Of course.
Paul Walker's character. And then Andy Dufresne, played by Tim Robbins.
Are both the characters redeemed?
No, because Paul Walker's character is a friggin' pervert.
Yeah.
He's just a perv.
Yeah, he doesn't really go back on his bad ways.
No. Well, he's not a bad guy. He's just a teenager. He's just a little pervert teen.
Yeah.
You know? I guess they're redeemed in a way. I guess the other thing is...
Well, he gets his brain back.
Both characters can never go back to their original lives, right?
Yeah,
like
that's
Tim
true.
Robbins is living in Zihuatanejo, building that boat. He's technically, he's a criminal. He's on the run.
Right.
And he had to change his identity. I guess they both changed their identity because Paul Walker's character is a camcorder and a brain in a bowl plugged into the wall, I suppose.
Yeah.
And Tim Robbins is now a boat guy.
Yeah.
So they can never go back. It's irreversible. What happens in the film is irreversible.
That is actually amazing. That is the theme of both movies, kind of. It's about characters who through being imprisoned learned that they can never go back to their old life.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes it more beautiful, doesn't it? Makes
it does,
a beautiful
yeah.
film. Yeah, very impactful.
Yeah, and you can still find humanity even though you're trapped in prison.
Yeah. Or you're just a little pervert boy in a bowl on ice, your brain, and you got a camcorder.
Does he technically die at the end because the brain short circuits?
Well,
spoiler alert.
No, I think that's a repeat thing. I think she's doing that striptease all the time.
Mm-hmm.
For him, for his little perv camcorder, you know?
Yeah.
At least that's what I think. I don't know for a fact.
Speaking of striptease, both movies feature a striptease involving water also. So
right.
The brain
right.
the brain in the bowl of water, and Tammy and the T-Rex watching his girlfriend striptease for some reason. Kind of randomly, and then at the end of the Shawshank Redemption, when he escapes through the toilet pipe,
toilet pipe. That's right.
He's it's raining and he's just in a giant puddle, and he just takes all his clothes off. Not so much a striptease in the sexy sense, but it is. I don't know.
Technically,
you could get into it if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and Red is interpreting it as a striptease.
He does, yeah.
Red is quite. But I guess both films have an evil character who's unnecessarily horny.
Yeah.
We got the guy, the sisters, the gang, and then you have the evil scientist making the T-Rex. He's also very horny.
Yeah.
For his like nurse assistant.
There's definitely like a menacing bad guy who is the person who locks the main character up, and they just want him to stay trapped.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much they deserve it. In both movies, there's a character with close ties to law enforcement.
Yes.
So nice. Andy is like doing taxes for all the coppers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one character, Byron, I think his name is, in Tammy and the T-Rex, his dad is a cop.
Well, I'll jump on top of that, Mike. Both movies have incompetent / evil cop characters or law enforcement characters.
Right.
Because all the guards are pretty like sick and twisted, and also they're they're doing dicey financial stuff. And like that one cop is a pervert.
Yes.
Another cop is like I mean, in Tammy and the T-Rex, one cop's like a pervert. The other one is like homophobic, and then they're all just kind of bad.
Yes.
At being cops, and they're kind of evil and sick and twisted. So both films are like a commentary on American law enforcement and the criminal justice system.
Yeah. Both movies have people grabbing dicks.
That's right. I forgot about the dick grab at the beginning of Tammy and the T-Rex.
Tammy and the T-Rex, there's two guys fighting. One of them's Paul Walker, and they just kind of like grab each other's wieners.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's meant to be funny, but it's also, that's just how they attack each other. Just by grabbing each other and going, ow, 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 ow. So you're laughing now.
Well, because of what because you said ow, 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 ow. Yeah, it was funny. You were funny, not the movie.
Thank you.
I'm not going to give the movie credit it doesn't deserve. You're welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Both are 90s films.
Yes.
So presumably they would have both been released on VHS.
Definitely.
And probably made most of their money on VHS.
Oh, definitely.
Because they both had a cult status.
That's correct, yeah. Oh, yeah. They're both cult movies, yeah, even though...
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess the Shawshank Redemption definitely, even though it was a popular film and a well-reviewed film, it still was a cult movie, I guess, because...
It wasn't popular, though. It got a cult status or a cult following years after its release. Like, I think its apex was probably the early 2000s.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember looking at IMDb in the early 2000s, getting online for the first time. Surfing the web.
Yeah. The E-net.
Back when going on IMDb could entertain you.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to go look at movie lists and what these actors were in. Just going on the internet to find information.
Now the website's a hellscape.
Yeah, but and just doing like, wow, this must be an amazing film if all of these nerds love it. They famously have great taste all the time.
Yep, it's true.
Both movies feature characters using a payphone.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Could you use a payphone to talk to people when you're in prison?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when he's out of prison, he uses a phone at some point. I can't remember. But he does touch a phone at some point, and his calling ability is limited in the Shawshank Redemption. And then in Tammy and the T-Rex friggin' use a phone. He uses a phone.
And then he's just like, "Rawr, rawr." He's just like growling into it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love all the
great
stuff they do in this movie with the T-Rex's arms.
Yeah.
Like they make the T-Rex like mime things, give signals to people, and then also because he has to use like some sort of T-Rex based sign language. But then also sometimes he has to do regular human things like use a payphone.
Well, he's just one of the guys. He's just a guy doing guy stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah, remember he also picks up Byron and then like brushes off his shoulders?
Yes.
Yeah, that was fun.
It brought a tear to my eye. That scene was really emotional. I was touched.
Well, both films touched Bob with their stories about brotherhood.
Both films have sort of law enforcement looking for somebody who's gone missing.
Yeah.
And that person hiding. So the T-Rex in the barn is hiding. And Andy Dufresne goes to Mexico, baby.
Do characters hang themselves in Tammy and the T-Rex?
No. But I guess no. Yeah. It's like, does the T-Rex hang anybody?
I don't think he
Not
does.
Really. No. Yeah, that would have been a good one. Brooks. That scene gets me, that old guy just hanging himself. Brooks was here, also red. Wow.
Everybody just loved being in prison is what the lesson of the movie is.
Yeah, nobody wants out.
No.
Well, it's because it's, it sort of breaks down that the institution is so flawed that there's like no way to reintegrate somebody after serving a prison sentence.
Yeah.
Right? I guess in a way, both films have a lot to say about society and sort of the systemic injustice that occurs within our justice system.
I agree. Yes, I agree.
Because Tammy and the T-Rex, sort of a bumbling small town of sheriffs and cops who aren't really good coworkers. They miscommunicate a lot, and they basically achieve nothing. And they end up shooting and killing the wrong guy.
Yeah.
And and then Shawshank just shows how, like, you serve time in prison and it achieves almost nothing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, also, there's no laws against taking someone's brain and putting it in a T-Rex.
That's true. There's also no laws against being a T-Rex.
Yeah.
Like, really, I think, I don't know. That T-Rex is a metaphor for something.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say both movies kind of morally ambiguous. Because
they're not overt.
Yeah, we're trying to
in their stance.
We're watching the Shawshank Redemption. We're sympathizing with the prisoners. What? The cops are the bad guys? What? Like, that's not what I'm used to seeing in a movie.
That's true.
Cops are always the good guys in the movie. In this movie, the cops are the bad guys.
You know what's cool? I feel like, in a way, Shawshank is the antithesis of Forrest Gump, because Forrest Gump takes, like, the American system and just glorifies it throughout the film, whereas Shawshank sort of is this, like, seething, inverted depiction of, like, middle 20th century America and how fucked up it is.
Right.
Because, like, Forrest Gump's like a Marine and he's in Vietnam, and we're just like worried about Forrest Gump. We're not thinking about the fact that the Vietnam War is a waste of time and people in Vietnam are just being like murdered senselessly. We're not thinking about that. I mean, you know what I mean?
We don't need to get into this again, but Forrest Gump does kind of like arguably make a lot of those statements.
Like that those things are bad?
Yeah. The Vietnam War was not a good thing. The people involved in it were kind of incompetent, or it was handled incompetently,
Oh, for sure. But I think the film also lacks any sort of perspective. Like, it never really takes a look at, like, the perspective of somebody from Vietnam, in Vietnam, during that conflict. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a very American-centric film. And as a result, if it does show, like, how sloppy something can be, like, the recruitment, the commanders, how Forrest Gump just falls ass backwards into things, how horrific things go for his platoon near the end of their, like, tour, how he gets good at ping pong. All that stuff is done with a great deal of levity that it just sort of feels like it undermines any sort of statement or, like stance that Robert Zemeckis could have been making.
I would say, yeah, I agree. And the Shawshank Redemption is in many ways no different though, because it's like overly sentimental to a fault. And so any statement it could be making about the American justice system seems to be erased by this story of a perfect white man coming into the prison system, not guilty for murdering somebody and escaping and tricking everybody. And like the music is like really like sentimental and overly sweet, you know? And so like the whole kind of any social commentary kind of gets erased by the feel goodery of just Hollywood movies.
I mean that's great. That's interesting.
But we're not talking about Forrest Gump versus the but we were talking about
Shawshank.
Well, we're talking about morally ambiguous movies, and I guess Forrest Gump also fits into that. Also Pulp Fiction in a way.
Yes. Is Tammy and the T-Rex morally ambiguous?
Yeah, because what the hell is this movie saying? It's very ambiguous what this movie's trying to say.
Yeah. I guess really what it comes down to, though, you know, whatever that fucking quote is by that person, it's like cinema should only be asking questions, not giving answers.
Oh, yeah,
I
right.
think a result of that is moral ambiguity.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, because Tammy and the T-Rex
like
asks
you can
a
show
lot
the
of questions.
duality of an issue, not take a stance, and let the viewers have the conversation necessary afterwards.
Yes.
Maybe that's what they were trying to do with Tanny.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the movie presents a dramaturgical dyad for sure of T-Rex and man.
Yeah.
So
really, really deep.
It does take a lot of time to unpack it all.
Yeah. I guess another similarity is a lot of people get hurt in both movies.
Yes.
Like people get chewed up and shot and fucked up in Tammy and the T-Rex, and a bunch of people get fucked up in Shawshank Redemption, including Andy.
Yeah.
Defresne.
Defresne.
Yeah, so yeah.
Both movies are Stephen King adjacent.
Okay.
Because this is a movie that Stephen King wrote, so it's very adjacent.
Extremely so adjacent.
Yeah.
Right? Side by side adjacent, yeah.
And I would say Tammy and the T-Rex kind of is Pet Sematary-esque. And that it kind of explores animals coming to life when they shouldn't be.
I think more Cujo.
Or Cujo also, yeah.
I think Cujo is more of an appropriate, but it's like Cujo and Christine mixed together because it's like an automated machine.
Yeah.
Inhabited by something. So it's really like
good. Yeah.
Cujo and Christine smushed together in this hybrid film. That's Tanny and the T-Rex.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is kind of cool. So yeah, definitely Stephen King adjacent. That's great.
Yeah. Tammy and the T-Rex could be a Stephen King movie for all we know.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's one of his short stories that was sold for $1 and the director just stole it.
Yeah.
He didn't pay the buck.
What are your thoughts on both movies? How do you review these?
So my review of Tammy and the T-Rex was, I wanted to give this film 5 stars, but my friend wouldn't let me.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was funny at the time when I wrote it on my Letterboxd account. And maybe Shawshank Redemption is not overhyped.
It's not?
I said maybe. I haven't decided yet, but it's real good.
Yeah.
You want to know why I love Shawshank Redemption? So many corners. Like our podcast has so many corners. There's so many corners in that prison. There's so many small rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Dufresne gets cornered all the time. There's like corners in the courtyard. There's little corners in the cell. Lots of corners. It's great.
Yeah. There is
less corners in Tammy and the T-Rex. There's open fields.
I mean, there's got to be corners inside that T-Rex. It's empty.
No, it's all smooth. It's like it's spherical in there, I think. Cylindrical and spherical. How about you? What are your thoughts? What are your reviews?
I think Shawshank Redemption is a well-made movie. It's a good movie. It also is satisfying in that kind of like this movie starts, has a middle, and ends kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I wanted to say something. I thought about this earlier today.
What's that?
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I don't care.
But I think this is a great point. I think this film is one of the most effective films for planting seeds and building a payoff for the entire runtime of a film.
Yeah.
Because the payoff, literally, they're working on the payoff for 2 hours and 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is sick. Most films will like try to do that, but it'll be sort of scattered throughout the film. This film is just like building it piece by piece. So like the sort of architecture of the story is really clever. And so when you get to the end, you're just like, wow. They were tricking me from the first 10 minutes.
Exactly.
And I think that's cool.
Yeah, like it is a satisfying movie where it's like we set up this stuff and then it pays off at the end. The character escapes as we all want him to. Like, so that tension is satisfied. And it's just like well shot, well acted. You know, the music is
well
nice,
sounded. Sounds
well-sounded.
Great sounding movie.
So I can see why people like really, really love this movie and why it's overhyped. It in many ways just kind of came out of nowhere as like this perfect movie for a lot of people at the time. Because Frank Darabont is like, what has he made? Before or after even? Besides The Walking Dead.
Fucking Green Mile.
Did he make The Green Mile?
He did.
Oh, so he had to go back to the Stephen King prison thing in order to have success again?
No, he made Shawshank Redemption, didn't direct anything until 1999, and then had Green Mile come out.
Yeah, and then he made The Majestic with Jim Carrey as like another attempt at like that overly sweet, kind of satisfying Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
That kind of calls back to older times. Yeah, but he hasn't really, he kind of can really only do the one thing, it seems like, which is fine. Same with, I guess, the other director too.
They're both one-trick ponies.
Kind of, yeah.
I think, like they're both directors without any range.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think the Shawshank Redemption is good. I do think it's an interesting movie to watch in light of like the last few years and just the America specifically, but also Canada, but the America's relationship with its own justice system and what we know now, I guess, versus how sadly optimistic people were in the 90s, you know?
Well, it's just another great example of pre-Y2K cinema. Exactly. So optimistic. Wow.
Yeah, so it works really well as that pre-Y2K kind of story that works. But yeah, it's interesting to watch now. Also, just the relationship between a white character and a black character in prison, and just the way that you would look at those characters now versus how you would have looked at them in the 90s. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know. I think it's still good though. I mean, it's a satisfying movie, you know. If movies are just watching stuff happen, this movie has lots of stuff happening.
I think that's my favorite way to explain what a film is to somebody.
Yeah.
Just stuff happening.
It kind of is.
Yeah. It's great. It's great.
And Tammy and the T-Rex I also like a lot just because of how dumb it is.
I think what sold it for me was the one shot where it's backlit by the sun and she's on the T-Rex and they're running away from the cops.
Yeah.
And it's like a 2D animated shot intercut with a close-up of her face.
Yeah.
To me, that's the pinnacle of cinema.
I know, they committed to it.
That's like the same thing as like Orson Welles dropping the snow globe down the stairwell.
Yeah.
And Citizen Kane. Like, it's the same fucking thing. It's great.
Yeah, it had some beautiful images in it.
I'm going to call it what it is. Cinema.
It was cinema for sure. It's 100% cinema.
I say full all caps cinema is my review of both films.
So I'd give both movies 4 stars.
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
Both great 90s exploitation films. Not as in 90s exploitation, but as in exploitation films from the 90s.
Yeah, I'd say 90s exploitation would be a film like mid-90s.
Yes.
Like just like nostalgia shit.
I'm surprised we don't get more of those.
Yeah, me too. People love the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe that's to come, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It's funny because the 80s exploitation kind of like happened immediately after the 80s. But 90s stuff didn't really happen right after the 90s.
Well, the 90s is aging like a fine wine, I think, whereas the 80s is more like a Kraft single-sliced cheese.
But
you
I
just
don't know.
want to enjoy it immediately.
90s aesthetic is also a little bit more, I wouldn't say nuanced than the 80s, but It's very easy to just kind of like stumble onto like an 80s aesthetic and then be like, this is, remember the 80s? You know, like The Wedding Singer?
Yeah.
That came out in the 90s. That wasn't even that long after when the 80s
How funny is that?
Yeah. But they didn't make like a 90s movie like that in the 2000s.
Aren't people doing that about like the aughts of the 2000s now? Like they're just kind of like poking fun at, I don't know either. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, that's the thing. Will the post Y2K era kind of have that same nostalgia? Or are we just kind of in a big like, you know, swirling nostalgia toilet right now and everything is kind of mixing together? It doesn't matter when it's from now.
I think we're in a nostalgia toilet.
Turlet.
For sure. Turlet, yeah. We're just swishing around.
The official pronunciation of the pod.
Yeah. Definitely just, it's a hodgepodge now.
Yeah, I can't imagine someone making a movie that's nostalgic for 2003.
No.
Or like 2011 or something like that. It's like, hey, remember 2011? It's like, yeah, what, you know, Psy, Gangnam Style, and somebody that I used to know playing in the background. What else is there?
What else do you need?
And I mean, 2003, you could at least have iPods, I guess.
Yeah. And like early, smaller computers. Like computers starting to become like more streamlined and common, and also like becoming domestic purchases. Yeah.
I remember getting a flat screen for my computer in 2004 or 5 or something like that, and being like, wow, it's
You probably
flat.
crapped your pants. You're so excited.
Yeah. It was so exciting to have a flat screen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 10 inches. It was not big.
You know? Yeah, 10 was big for then, probably.
Yeah. Wild stuff.
Yeah. Astonishing. Truly astonishing. Well, this feels over.
It feels over. Yeah, good. Classic. Got to play the hits. You always got to play the hits.
Yeah, you always.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Listen to, wait, God damn it.
Holy fuck.
I mean, listen to the pod. Listen to other episodes. Why not? But then also, follow us on social media from Justin Duquesne with a number 2 on Letterboxd, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
From Justin Defresne.
Oh, very good. From Justin Defresne. Nice.
Yeah.
And then come back next week. And what are our movies for next week, Bob?
Chungking Express and Requiem for a Vampire.
That's right.
So watch them, folks.
Great.
And we'll talk about how they're one and the same.
Yes. Bye.
See ya.